For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 5.11, Ballroom Blitz. My name is Tansenn, and I am joined by Jess.
Hello!
And we have a reoccurring guest. Andreas, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Maggie is still away, so we're...
Maggie who?
Hey, at least there'll be no confusion about who's talking now.
You sound just like her. We're actually recording this week's episode at the same time that DragonCon is happening. So Jim Butcher was at DragonCon, and he had a lot of panels. So in the next week or two, when those transcripts get uploaded, we're going to have more information we get to talk about. One of the panels was very specifically Battleground related. But the other two might be a little bit more fun for the whole family.
a little more accessible.
A little more accessible for where we're at right now.
Do you find yourself becoming bone tired in a fight? Do you find yourself with nobody to dance with? Are you living in fear because you don't have the guts to get out there? Bob's Discount Elixirs, affordable, effective, guaranteed results, specializing in love potions and exotic.
Chapter 23. Harry is briefly saved by Marcone and Hendrix. Marcone repeats his offer to have Dresden work for him. Harry pretends to want to sign the contract, which results in a violent attack from Parker on Hendrix and Marcone. Harry manages to escape only to be faced with the now wolf-shaped FBI agents outside. Harry retreats to the back of the garage and hides.
I prepared for last week's episode by reading, and I prepared for this week's episode by listening to the audiobook. And I noticed James Marsters was confusing Marcone and Parker in the text. I realized he was going back and forth a little bit on who was doing which and what.
Oh.
So that's a fun little tidbit if you're aware of the text. If you're not aware of the text, that could be mighty confusing.
Right.
But there was a moment when...
He pronounces his name differently, too.
I think he says Marcone.
He says Marcone.
Does he?
It threw me off, because I'm like, I know he's talking about Marcone, because there's no other character that's got a name close to it, but like he...
Actually, I think I do remember...
it was just weird. It was weird enough. The pronunciation was just slightly off that I'm like...
I think I remember now Maggie saying that he did originally say Marcone, which is how both me and Mom read it in the original text. And then at some point he switched over to Marcone. So we took it as Butcher had probably been like, hey, you're saying it wrong. So I do remember that now that you bring it up.
I wondered about that.
Mm-hmm.
It did mess with my head a bit because I didn't remember it because it's been a year since I've listened to that book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Maggie's pretty specific about, it's Marcone. It's
Yeah.
Marcone.
Yeah, she is, yeah. So I think now that you brought that up, that reminds me. So just pretend like Mom was here telling us that herself. But yeah, there was a moment when Marcone, or Marcone, went to like beat Harry over the head with a tire iron, and I'm like, what? First of all, he'd get Hendrix to do that. Second of all, he has a gun. And I was like, oh, you meant to say Parker.
Yeah.
Understood.
Oh.
But just something fun thrown in there.
I'm going to have to re-listen to that now. Just to,
Must have had an
to see.
off recording session.
Well, when you're switching back and forth between so many names, too, I'm sure, it's easy for the producers and for Marsters and stuff to just not realize, because, like, all those people are in the room.
And
that
also,
sounds right.
He also keep in mind, like, this is what, third book in?
Second
book in, so it's not like he
doesn't know the characters very well yet.
He doesn't know the characters. And, like, I assume he's a professional, but still, like, this is a small-time fish compared to some of the other jobs I'm sure he's got.
Well, and I think
right?
Mom has said before, too, that the first 2 or 3 books he didn't read before he recorded.
right, just as sort of a cold read.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, for that, even if it were a cold read, still, he's good.
Oh,
I
they're
like
great,
him.
yeah. I like the issues. It's more fun when he messes up.
Especially since you don't think about it, you don't realize it until years later when you're re-listening.
Re-listening.
Right?
So the assault on Harry is interrupted by Marcone threatening Parker with death by Hendrix.
That's a great line, yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, essentially Marcone just says, time to get fucked, which is
He's mine.
Always fun.
Leave him alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Parker considers attacking still, but Marcone explains that the caliber of weapon, and that would result in Parker's sure death.
And he points out that the rest of his gang are having engine issues or whatever.
Yeah.
They sabotaged all their bikes.
Weirdly enough.
Yeah. I love Marcone for that. Like, he's not like... If he doesn't have to be to the point violent, he's not. He'll take less violent options before opening up, right?
Right.
Like he's you can already see in this like what he's building up to be. Like there's a reason he will become.
He is a businessman.
He's a businessman. He's just not a legal, quote unquote, legal businessman, right?
Some of them are legal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
But-
there's,
yeah.
we were just talking about the pronunciation of Marcone and Marcone. But if you're Dresden, you can avoid that whole conundrum by just calling him John, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is always fun.
Which
Watching him flinch at that eye twitch.
How dare you?
No.
and it's also that's a threat coming from a magic user, even if you think about it, because it's a,
To a degree, I doubt he's ever actually heard Marcone say the word John.
yeah.
But, I mean,
Because John is his first name, right?
it's John Marcone, but
Yeah.
who knows how Harry figured that out. If that's just, I mean, then again, I'm sure the cops know.
I just meant in the reference to you don't want a magic user to know your true name. So
But he probably doesn't know his true name. Because you
Probably
have to hear the way Marcone says it in order to know the true name. But it is a little bit of a threat in and of itself because he really he really hammers it in. He's like, hey, John. Thanks, John. Good timing, John.
I'm going to be an ass to you
yeah,
and not give
like-
you the respect of calling you by your last
Yeah.
name.
So, I'm just saying, it's a nice way to get around the whole Marcone or Marcone.
Yeah.
It's all Dresden was really doing. He doesn't know how to pronounce his name. Go with the easy one.
Go with Gentleman Johnny.
Gentleman
Yeah.
Johnny.
So Marcone tells Harry that McFinn has called him to threaten him. And then he knows he's a loop guru and has actually read Dresden's police report, which he's kind of like, what?
So, yeah, Stormfront did hint at the fact that Marcone has fingers everywhere, including both politicians and cops in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think it was earlier in this book that it was said that he's got fingers all the way to Washington. So we know for a fact that Marcone pays off a lot of people for a lot of different reasons at all sorts of levels.
It comes up later on in this chapter or the next chapter as well.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit more of confirmation straight from Marcone being like, yeah, actually, I did steal that report. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's more like, well, no, he mentions it. There's people who have to file everything, right?
Well, exactly. And
So he just got himself a copy of it. Realistically, someone just put it through a photocopier and took a copy home.
which essentially says, I mean, it probably didn't end at Marcone. I mean, Marcone's not the only one who can pay anyone off, right? And if you really think about it, I mean, we don't
Vampires,
know at this point in the game
Fae.
who would be doing it. We don't know who's all involved, but we know that clearly it's super possible that this direct from a spirit of intellect, which is a big deal. Harry has to keep it a secret that he's got this thing. We don't really know much about how Harry got Bob, very much. We don't know a whole lot of the details of Bob's origin story yet, but we do know that Bob is a spirit of intellect and knows a lot, and it's not safe in the hands of any mortal man. And most people consider Harry not to be one of the safe people that it should be in the hands of.
Pretty sure most of the people around Harry don't exactly think he's sane, let alone safe.
Well, I'm thinking more of like just the council itself, right?
Yeah.
That's the main magical body of people that he's like, we don't tell them that I have Bob, right?
Yeah.
And for a good reason, and again, we will get into the whole Bob thing later, but to know the report basically directly from Bob is with whomever at this point
Yeah.
is a little bit concerning.
He didn't mention him in the report though, right?
Obviously not, but it's it's...
Someone might get suspicious as to how the hell did Harry learn all this specific detail.
It's not information that Harry found in a book. It came from a spiritual being that has existed for a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that anyone who comes across that information, I mean, it's basically like a go directly to go collect your $200. Like, you have to put no work in to have all of this werewolf lore, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for what we will see as this book ends, what does and does not happen to the different factions of werewolves. Clearly, having that werewolf information out there in the world is super useful.
Yeah.
And now it's essentially available to everyone. It's just, it's essentially like you've gone and made, like, you're Edward Snowden, and you just stole a bunch of documents and you told the entire magical community everything they need to know about werewolves.
Yeah.
When it used to be a need-to-know basis. And now everybody knows about the werewolves, and we're not quite sure what we should do about that now.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the world's deal with pretty much everything magical.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit of like, Harry didn't mean to leak it, but he did, essentially.
Mm-hmm. He was trying to be helpful, but knowing Harry.
And this is another part of naivety from Murphy, actually, because why would she file it? She gave it to the FBI guys, and the FBI guys essentially gave it directly to Murphy. He heard it over the phone call, right? Maybe because IA was there and watching, so she had no choice. But essentially, like, Murphy, if you know that you have, like, illegal magical documents on your desk, maybe you don't file this one. Maybe, it's one of those things where it's like, if, again, Murphy's not so sure about the whole magical thing. She knows Harry knows stuff, but she's not too sure if she buys into the rest of it. So maybe at this point, Murphy's still not, like, whatever. But this still seems like one of those things that you read, and then you burn with a match and you get rid of. Like, okay, let me put this into our police file forever and ever and ever. Like, no, if you get fired from your job and somebody new takes over SI, they have to get their own wizard. They can't just look up your files. That's not fair.
They have to run into, the next head of IA, whatever. Yeah. Special Investigations has to run into their own Harry on their own bridge fighting their own troll.
Exactly. And if you don't deserve to fix the monsters in the dark.
Whether or not you deserve to doesn't really matter. You're not going to survive long enough to.
Well, this is what I'm saying, though, is that if Murphy is essentially coming up with, and this is, said briefly here, and then as the books go on, is that Murphy is training an entire group of police officers to be aware. Like, SI is made up of people who do believe more than anyone else does. It's not just Murphy who's doing all the paperwork. Like, all of her people are there cleaning up the mess with her, right? They're all seeing the monsters with her and all saying, okay, how are we going to swing this one, right? It's not just Murphy. She's just the head of it, right?
Yeah. But that's the reason, but you just gave a reason as to why she would file it.
Which is exactly like she's trying to build up a police force of people who are knowledgeable so that anyone who comes into this situation, if she dies on the job, they can take it up. I'm saying, fuck them. If they don't make friends with Harry, they don't get the information.
Really, what SI eventually is going to need is their own Bob. They need it. They
Just you wait.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, they'll need something eventually where they can go, right?
But again, it's so dangerous because anyone can clearly rip apart a police station and take whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
So, and as we've just seen, a police file, which is essentially like the most innocuous thing in a police building. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even like it's like evidence collected from a scene. It's just a report.
Put into a filing cabinet.
And this is out in the world now forever. Like, that's my point, though, is that there comes a point when it's like, it's great to want to be prepared, and it's great that you want to have this, like, do everything by the books and keep your files and prepare your staff and be able to reference this in the future. But at some point, Murphy's going to need to figure out a need-to-know definition. And I think, it's important to say that this police file probably shouldn't have been handed off to the secretary.
No. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the burn that file. Because even though Special Investigations is what it is, it sort of takes away from any sort of
even if Special
legitimacy
Investigations
that she's got.
Totally. And even if Special Investigations was more like their own
like a private
I'm just trying to think of right now, like the Secret Service or like
the X-Files.
the X-Files, like if they were their own separate government body where it's like you need insane access to get to these files in this point, even then I could see that being a little bit more justifiable then, because it's like, okay, but this is like basically a beat cop filed this. Anyone can look this up, right? And clearly steal it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just
realistically, what she needs is a storage unit somewhere that she can have Harry fucking secure magically.
Well, and I blame Harry too, because he's not being as safe about Bob's information as well. Harry should know how valuable this information is. I mean, if this was a more like capitalistic book, this information would have been an insane price tag on it, right? And Harry essentially is just like, here, every single person on the planet. He even told Agent Denton, I think it was, who took the report. He's like, can I read it? And he's like, yeah, sure, do whatever the hell you want, just as long as Murphy also reads it.
Yeah.
This is top tier information. I get Harry didn't have much of a choice. If he was like, no, you can't, that's super suspicious. But I think that he should have been a little bit more like, consider your source, Harry, and don't go handing the source's information to everyone, because information from Bob is extreme information. It's not just Google. It's like the dark web Google. I don't know. It's
Counter argument
way
to
extra.
that is
No, he's a guest. We don't have to listen to it.
keeping that information secret or keeping that within a small group of people is exactly what the White Council would do. And Harry fucking hates the White Council.
As we get into the Paranet and all that switch, we see that Harry totally thinks that everyone should know everything.
Yeah.
And I get that. My issue is that, I mean, yeah, it is very 50-50. You can't tell the good guys everything and the bad guys nothing. There's no way to know, right? There's no way to keep it out of their hands. But at the same time, I mean, there's a difference between, I mean, like I said, a beat cop, but even like a little like, you know, equivalent of a beat witch, you know, like a little kitchen witch being like, this is how you ward your house against ghosts, telling everyone on her level or whatever like that, versus Harry being like, I have one of the most knowledgeable creatures in the entire world, let me share you everything he says. Like, oh, the Oracle should not be in everyone's pocket sometimes.
Keep in mind what's going on around this situation, though. Innocent people are being ripped apart by some sort of wolf. At the end of the day, Harry wants it to stop, right? Like, that tends to be what drives him, is he wants to protect people. So if that means he has to give out this information to make sure that the people investigating it and taking it seriously actually get their job done, he does it every time.
I know. And I know, like, once we get into the Paranet, that really is...
Like, we'll have to wait
Harry's
till the
opinion
next
is that
book
everyone should know.
to see if he pulls back a bit after what happened in, like, these chapters,
Yeah.
what gets revealed. I mean, what's already been revealed, but gets confirmed in this, but yeah.
I just have a wee bit of an issue with this.
We could tell.
I get both sides of it. I get it. I get why Harry wants everyone to know how to defend themselves, and I also, you know, feel strongly that Harry should shut up sometimes.
I don't
and
think
be a little
Harry
bit more
even,
private.
I don't think Harry even knows
Well, that's the thing, is that
how
Harry wasn't
powerful
thinking.
Bob is, though.
Well,
He does, but we'll find out.
he knows how valuable Bob is. Maybe not powerful, but he knows that Bob's intellect. I mean, he says it, I think, in book 1. He's like, Bob's forgotten more about magic than I'll ever learn, except Bob doesn't forget anything.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. Well, he doesn't forget. He doesn't forget anything, but he's able to lock shit off, which we find out later. Right?
That's slightly different, though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Got that rant out of your system?
No, but I can hold off now for a couple books.
Yeah, Marcone repeats his offer to Dresden, the same stipulations applying, including having the investigations on Murphy stopped. So I wonder if...
Which is a nice bonus. Bonus offer. And I think, you know, and we spoke about this too, Maggie was still here for that conversation, and we spoke about whether or not this was a good deal for Harry to take. And I think, you know, whatever, you know, arguments and points and conclusions we came to back then, at this point, a lot has changed. And this would be when I'm like, okay, full stop. This is when I start considering this deal now. Like, forget all the morals and ethics, and I'm not on your team. Like, when you're staring at, like, the carnage of the police station, you're stuck in this little box of a room, and essentially, like, Parker just tried to kill you, and then Hendrix and Marcone showed up. Like, Harry's got... I don't know if it mentions it here, but in the next moment or two, Harry realizes that he's totally tapped for magic.
Yeah.
Like, he's done right now.
No.
And this is when I would be, like, my low point and being like, okay, suddenly this deal looks a whole lot shinier.
Yeah, this is probably the first point in his journey where he's got to put aside his morals and work with the bad guy.
Figure out just how much you're willing to do for survival.
Like, we see him do it later on in the books, too. He hits a point where he will make
bigger
deals.
and bigger extents.
Yeah.
But yeah,
this is
early
kind
on-
of the first example
Yeah, exactly.
of
This
it.
is the first when it's
'Cause if-
Harry and Marcone.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first book, he was able to deal with the issues himself.
Well, and I brought this up actually in the first book. Marcone is the third recurring character we meet. You meet Harry, then Murphy, then Marcone. And Marcone is a big deal in the Dresden Files.
Yeah.
He's a huge deal, actually. So it is interesting to see these moments between the two of them grow because, like you said, Harry does begin to take deals with people as the books go on, and he's still very rigidly like, fuck you, Marcone. And it kind of is funny that it's like, it's this human gangster that Harry's like, absolutely not. Which,
Yeah.
on the other hand, this is his most similar person. Like, they both started out the same way. You can say that whatever monster or fae or fallen or, like, we'll get into all of these different creatures that we meet in the books, but none of them have the same origin story as a fellow human being.
And
But Marcone does, so I think it's a little bit easier to be like, how did you become this corrupt when you were a baby and a child living in the human world? It's not like you can say you grew up in the Never Never or in
Yeah.
the plains of hell or...
it's also,
you know?
he's human, which means you can't... All the fae, demons, everything else, they have rules that they live by, whereas humanity's rules are fluid and break and change at a whim.
And I
So-
think that's why Harry's got that much extra of
Yeah.
a grudge against it, too.
Yeah, and I believe that would be my opinion as to why he never, or why he's always
adamant?
fuck you, Marcone, is because he knows that he can
doesn't have the
trust
same
a fae.
excuse.
Like, a fae will try and screw him over, but they have to go by their word, so if he's careful enough, he can do it. Even the coins, like, the coins can only do so much, right? So it's one of those things of, humans are unpredictable, and Harry knows that because he is one, and he understands them. Whereas, like, the fae have to actually run by certain rules. So I can get why he doesn't want to deal with Marcone. Even though Marcone, we find out as the books go on, he has his own rules, but he's still human. So you can only trust him to a
Well,
certain
that's why
extent.
I'm saying, like, I think Harry feels more betrayed by Marcone because, you know, essentially speaking, like, they both very much could have fallen into each other's, you know, paths, you know? And obviously did not.
I mean, if Harry had a separate... if Harry's backstory was slightly tweaked, he easily could have been working for Marcone.
So Dresden briefly considers a death curse, but pauses as he's got an idea. So Parker also questions Marcone's attempts to get Dresden out at the last second. And Dresden asks for a pen, trying to say that he'll sign the
Sign.
contract, or at least feign it. Which makes Parker lose his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not part of the deal. Which is a little bit...
Do you think he
Naive.
was just feigning, or do you think he would have signed it? Because when I was listening to it, I thought he would actually sign it. Like, I thought he was going, all right, fine, I'll sign it.
I
And
think
then-
he was banking on the fact that Parker was going to
Go insane.
go lose it.
Yeah. I'm kind of 50-50. Just like either this would have been his breaking point, take the deal for the first time with Marcone, deal with it and deal with the consequences so he could live. Or maybe he was hoping that Parker would go nuts. But, I mean, either way, it worked out in his favor.
Yeah. I took it just because of how he stopped his death curse when he had an idea.
Well,
right, yeah, maybe.
Which is one of the issues with that as well, because Harry, you know, is trying to draw in the power, and it fizzles out, it doesn't work, and Marcone takes notice of that, right? Which is
Yeah.
another big issue, and I think whether or not Harry was banking on Parker losing it, I think at that moment too, Marcone just saw that you're out of magic. You are totally fucked right now. Like, whether or not you're going to sign that contract, I would go along with it for as long as possible too, because you got to stall. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
have magic, like, yeah, at that point, I would be like,
Yeah, if you piss
Fuck, fuck,
Marcone
fuck,
off
fuck,
too
fuck,
much
fuck,
at that
fuck, yeah.
moment, he might just use Henderson and get rid of you as a problem, right?
Well, Marcone even says, he's like, if you don't sign the contract, you're going to die tonight.
Yeah.
Like, listen, either I'm going to get you or Parker's going to get you, but you're not leaving this room.
Gonna get you.
But if you sign the contract, I promise you're going to make it out of here safe and sound. And when his magic fails on him, and even like Harry said, like his eyes teared up, like he was really upset for a moment there when he's like, magic is who I am. It's a part of me. Like, I am nothing without my magic. I can't do anything without my magic. And he breathes and he gets through that moment. He's like, okay, no. I can do stuff without my magic. But there's a moment when he's just like totally spiraling, like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But luckily, while, Harry's freaking out, Parker also starts freaking out.
Yeah.
Which is very helpful. I just want to throw in there too that, just to backtrack too, Marcone also brought up that his parents didn't leave him any sort of silver. He's like, no, my parents had nothing to leave me. I think that's one more thing to throw into the slight Marcone backstory, like, potentially both were orphans, or at least both came from a poor situation. Even if Marcone had his parents, it clearly wasn't a very rich life. Because, I mean, even me, like, my family's not rich, but I'm going to have jewelry left over to me. Maybe, potentially, none of it will be real true silver. It might all be fake and dumb, but I'm still going to have jewelry left to me, so the fact that he had absolutely nothing, it's either your parents really hated you, or they really had nothing.
I took that to mean that, like, he was pointing out that he's not part of this world. Like, he found out about the supernatural not as a child, but as an adult.
Well, no, he said his parents didn't leave him anything.
Yeah,
so he had no inherited silver.
I know, but like, yeah. Oh, yeah, the importance of it being inherited. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with supernatural, and just whether or not your parents either are willing to or have the means to. So we don't know which, but one or the other. Either they couldn't or didn't want to leave him anything.
Yeah, that's a good character moment, that one.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, going back to Carnage.
So,
just about Carnage.
Just about.
Yeah, so Harry agrees to sign the deal, asks for a pen, and then whether or not he was banking on it or not, Parker goes nuts over the idea of losing his kill and getting his revenge, and goes after Henderson.
And then we have another person enter the draw.
And, like, at this point, Harry's free. He just hasn't shown that he's free yet. So once everyone's distracted, he makes his move.
Yeah. Yes, so he
takes a run for the door.
Takes a run for the door just as the FBI shows up. Doesn't...
What a comical moment of wrong time to open the door. But that in true Harry fashion. Like, in true Harry fashion, you get out of the pan, you're in the fire. Like,
totally. And like it's literally like Denton makes eye contact with him and says, the wizard doesn't leave this room.
Yeah.
It's like, man. Like, this wasn't an already impossible situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, I think a couple episodes back, it was like the Scooby-Doo moment when you're running in and out of rooms. And it's like, every time Harry opens a door, there's just one more person who wants to kill him. And it's like, oh, fuck, not this door, next door.
Yeah, that's his life, essentially. Or those on these weekends, that's his life.
Yeah. It's rough, man. And I think as we get into the next chapter, it's just one more person. He's just, every time he opens a new door, there's just one more, like, it's like, comedy movies too, and it's like 37 exes show up on the guy's doorstep. Yep. It's like, remember me? And it's like nonstop. Everyone Harry's met ever. It's just every book they're like, excuse me, I was trying to kill you 6 books ago. What happened?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Harry backtracks and finds a place to hide.
Right. Well, right before he does that, he actually gets to witness Ben and Wilson reach into their jackets and then suddenly change into wolves.
Right, yeah.
So this is the first time that he's confirmed that there's
and he makes
and wolves.
And he takes note of the fact that the other agent has a belt.
Yep.
Yes.
He does notice his and makes that connection.
Like, I put that information aside for later.
Yeah.
Which, and obviously, as we know, that would mean a Hexenwolf. We've learned about the different kinds of werewolves. Like everyone else in this universe, we're all caught up on what the different kinds of werewolves are now. So yeah, so Harry does take note. He's like, okay. Which, as he said, right as he was getting kidnapped, he saw Agent Rogers drive by and he started to laugh because all the pieces clicked into place. I think this is just one more. Like, he didn't even have that at the time. He just thought, okay, the FBI was setting me up. Now he's like, oh, the FBI orchestrated it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're even deeper into this than he knew before.
Totally. And Marcone comes in. He's like, why the fuck is McThane accusing me of destroying his prison cell and saying, tell me over that now? So it's like, well, I'm glad that everyone's here. Let's sort this out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If only they had a peace talks with Mc too. This all could have been dealt with so nice, right?
Peace talks. Those don't go over well in this world.
What are you talking about? There was so much peace talks happening.
Yeah. That completely ended and turned into a complete and utter war.
The next book is called Battleground.
Yeah.
Not we survived and it was all okay.
But yeah, so he notices the belts, notices them change, that clicks, and then he runs and is able to grab a wrench as his weapon. It's not even a gun at this point, he's got a wrench. So Caveman Harry is here now. Most basic of weapons, right? A
Yeah,
club.
I mean, everyone except Denton. So you've got Marcone, Hendrix, a lycanthropy. That's Parker.
Lycanthrope.
Lycanthrope.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 Hexenwolves plus Denton, who hasn't changed and is still human FBI man.
And the sound of the street wolves is what he hears them coming.
Yes, and now they are coming too. So,
Yeah.
A horrible, horrible joke. What happens when everyone walks into a bar
Yeah.
and you've got a wrench? Yeah. So yeah, like as you said, Harry takes cover in the back and is like, let's just see how this plays out because I don't have a plan.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to chapter 24.
Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us to do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at www.patreon.com/freeflowrambling.
Chapter 24. A rescue attempt is made by Tera West and the Alphas to get Dresden out of the garage via escape tunnel. While Dresden is making his escape, Parker is caught and slaughtered by the FBI wolves. Outside, Dresden joins the fight with Tera and the Alphas against Roger in his wolf form. So in the face of death, interestingly, Dresden is way more afraid that he's burned out his magic and that it might never return. And he has, like, as you were saying, he has his identity crisis of sorts right there. Like that he's not just failed, but he has failed the magic itself.
Yeah, like as Harry said, like magic reacts to who you are as a person. So if his magic isn't reacting, who is he as a person? So
He's now just a PI.
Yes, which actually a fun tidbit here that Jim Butcher brought up at the DragonCon panel is that he's writing an entirely separate Dresden book that has nothing to do with the magic. It's him just on a totally PI case only. No magic involved at all. Which sounds really cool. Just like a kind of separate
I hope
side novel, I guess, to the whole thing.
I hope that throughout the whole book, Dresden is looking for the magical cause because he only deals with magical cases.
It's just like a straight up real case, and he's like, there's gotta be an angle. Where's the vampires? Where's the werewolves?
I hope that there's at least a chapter or two of that where he just like goes nuts trying to figure out how this is magic.
It's funny because Harry obviously always writes his like each book is really essentially his case file where he sums up the events, right? So it'd be really funny if by the end of it, he's just like, I just can't figure out the magic angle. I figured out the whole case, but there was no magic, so clearly I must be missing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really funny. But that was just a side tidbit. Or alternate universe. He really did lose his magic, and this is a whole extra timeline book where Harry did lose his magic and just has to be a regular PI. I don't know. Just Butcher restarts the entire series, but it's just Harry with a wrench now.
I think in that scenario, Harry's already made enough enemies that he would not last long.
Well, it's almost like when you play video games and you like unlock a skin after you've beaten the game or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like now you have a flying cape that you can use for the whole game again, or I don't know, like whatever weird things. But yeah, if it was just like now you play without any of the cool magic and stuff like that, we give you a broom. go through the
mode.
levels now. Yeah. Hard mode. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it'd be really funny if it was essentially, do it again, but harder.
So Dresden watches as the firefight continue. Marcone and Hendrix manage to escape in a truck while the FBI battle the street wolves. Denton with his submachine gun, and now the wolf form of Agent Ben and Wilson. So there's just a giant scene of carnage going on. Again, another scene of
Yeah, I mean,
the violence.
very soon after. This is like 4 chapters later. The next night. And yeah, like you just said, like Marcone and Hendrix jump into a truck and drive through the garage door. They're like, bye.
Yeah.
Right? And the FBI and the street wolves are just suddenly at each other's throats.
Yep.
And you've got 3 Hexen wolves and an FBI agent versus 20, 30 street wolves.
Right?
So the fact that the FBI is holding their own is insane with the amount of power that these, these belts are doing.
But
What the fuck?
But they're the size of, from the descriptions, they're direwolf size.
Yeah, well, yeah, it says that they're massive, but I mean,
And the
size isn't everything.
No.
You only have 4 limbs either way. Like, you've got your jaws and you've got your 4 limbs, but like...
But they're way faster.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that the stark difference between these 2 different kinds of werewolves is like... Because even the street wolves have super healing, fast healing, right? And we know that they are still strong and such like that, but the fact that they're still, like, you know, again, 20 to 30 of them against only 3 werewolves and a guy with a assault rifle or whatever it was he had...
SMG.
That's
yeah.
insane. Insane.
Yeah.
So at this point, you know, like there isn't enough going on.
Yeah.
Harry starts to notice that someone is trying to
Digging sounds.
dig under the wall.
I love that moment so much. It makes me laugh.
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
So the ground starts to shake. He starts to hear some scuffling, and he says, like, right under my butt, essentially.
Yeah.
There's digging, and he's like, nope, and whacks it. And then he's like, and only another moment later, a paw breaks through, and he's like, absolutely not, whacks it again.
Yeah.
And eventually Tera is like, bitch, it's a rescue mission. Stop hitting us.
Stop
Yeah.
striking at the paws.
Yeah.
Stop.
I love how he's like, how do you know it's me? And she's like, you're the only person who would smack the paws of the people trying to rescue you.
Totally right, which is 100% true.
Yeah.
Such a good moment.
So we find out from Denton that Rogers has been outside, has found Tera West.
Yes. So this isn't even 3 wolves against 20 or 30 street wolves. Like, this is 2 wolves and a FBI agent against.
Right.
So Rogers has gone out to fight off, obviously, these paws. And meanwhile, they continue to dig Harry out, and he squeezes himself through the hole and whatever.
Which, I know he's lanky, but he's tall.
I
So
mean,
what a pain in the ass that must be to crawl through that hole.
it was big enough for a wolf body, though.
Yeah.
So I think comparatively.
Yeah. But still.
But yeah, no, not an easy thing.
No.
And like, I'm not really claustrophobic, but I don't know how much I trust that. I guess in like do or death situation, you're gonna do it, but like,
Well, he's
Sure.
right before that. He sees Parker just get mauled to death.
yes.
Yeah.
In a
Yes,
most
yes.
horrible way, and that sort of
And
sexual gore and
the bloodlust.
Yeah.
I'd call it a bloodlust. And Denton's like double tapping everyone too to make sure they stay down.
Yeah.
So like he's got no option.
well, and at that point, Denton has changed as well. So all 3 of those wolves are
Right, yeah. Sorry. Just
going
before
to
the
town.
bloodlust thing, there was the he was double tapping. He was going around and executing
right.
Yeah.
the street wolves. And then right after that he see the bloodlust event happens.
Well, and like the wolves start like eating him,
Yeah.
which is like extra gross.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
So he Dresden would be absolutely
Yeah.
horrified to see that. I think
And yeah, you've
the
got
matter
the
of
wolf
tunnel
saying,
is
like,
yeah, get the fuck out.
totally
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
And you can, like...
As soon as it's big enough. Oh, yeah, he even says he turns around and starts frantically digging with the wrench.
helping out, and he says, like, Lana says, she's like, I can smell the wizard still. So essentially, yeah, it's like they're definitely on your tail,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Exactly.
So when he makes it out on the other side, he sees Rogers is surrounded by half a dozen other wolves. And
Yep.
he's like, oh, great, I just left this into another one, right?
Yeah.
Only this time, they're surrounded by Tera, they're
Alphas.
joined with Tera West. And Harry can pretty much put the pieces together, like, okay, this is Tera's baby wolves right now, right?
Yeah.
Apparently they're on my side. And again, they're keeping Rogers at bay, but not greatly.
Yeah, and so Harry's only met the alphas briefly in the department store when he was spying on Tera, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
at this point
Yeah,
he
okay,
hasn't.
yeah.
Yeah, no, he saw them at the warehouse, and then he brought it up to Tera and McFinn the night before, and like really got it confirmed that Tera and the Alphas are a team.
Oh, okay.
Only
okay.
who knows how. So he's gotten the confirmation. It wasn't just a random meetup. They do know each other, and she is aware of them, and for whatever reason, they are working together.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is his second time actually seeing them.
yeah.
And also,
like, yeah,
his
they're-
first time seeing them shifted. The first time he just saw them as a bunch of kids.
Right.
So he's seen them
okay,
once
yeah,
as
yeah.
kids and now once as wolves, and that's it.
And like to your point, like they're not doing an amazing job, but they're not doing badly. Like considering they're baby wolves, they're pups essentially.
Well, they're essentially just surrounding him.
Yeah.
It's like,
But they have enough. Like
They're
they're
keeping
good.
him off balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're good enough. Like they know what they're doing enough to keep him off balance, right?
to a degree, like Harry says, he's like, look, there's 3 more, so this isn't going to work for long.
Yeah.
But yes,
But
at
that-
the moment, just as one, they are at least holding him at bay, which
Yeah.
is something, considering how we just saw how 3 were taking on
Yep.
however many. It is impressive that these, I don't remember if I said half a dozen or a dozen of them,
Something like that. Yeah.
are managing. So at
I
least
mean,
that's something.
It's a small enough number to fit into a van. A
And when you
minivan.
don't have, someone with a gun also taking you out, that is helpful too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The Marcone, though, is like fully gone. Like the truck is
Peace
Yeah.
out.
not around right now, which is, smart.
That is Marcone. He
That
knows
is,
the odds are against him. He's
Self-preservation,
gone.
goodbye.
Yeah.
That's another nice thing if Harry could learn that one.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, Harry decides to throw himself in the center of the circle with this wolf.
Yeah.
So self-preservation, not at all.
Yeah.
He gets himself up to the furious level, and he decides to help and
launches.
stay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because Laura, she tells him that her and the alphas are going to hold them off, and he needs to go help her fiance, right?
Well, and this is that moment when Harry's like, you know what? Magic isn't the be-all, end-all of who
Yeah.
a wizard is.
Because he already knows what he has all the information he needs to defeat this guy. It's a lot harder without magic.
And again, like this whole series is essentially, it is still a mystery novel. Harry has to still figure out all the clues. It's not just magic, he's got to think and do. And I like the little moment when he's like, magic, magi, wizard, knowledge. Like, we are supposed to do this because we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, but with power comes responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's I think, one of his core values right there, I think.
Totally, 100%.
Well, he even says it. Like, he says it I think in that moment or somewhere in the, yeah. He says that, like, he makes that quote, which is
Tansenn
essentially...
was just quoting.
Yeah, exactly. And he says it. And then it comes up next chapter, too, which is hilarious, too.
Well, it comes up all the time because he, like you said, magic isn't just magic. It is defined by the person who is casting the spell. No 2 wizards can cast the same spell the same way.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to read that short story about Lucio. She described magic as being like the different colors reflected through a pyramid, or a light reflected through the pyramid to be the different colors, right?
Yeah, prism.
That's not how Harry sees magic at all, right? They're both still able to cast, and they do a lot of the same spells and defense and attack spells and things like that, but for them both, it comes off totally different. And she's a lot more delicate of a practitioner than Harry. Harry's like, cover the whole place in flames and yank out what you can.
Yeah.
And she's a lot more like, just light the one or two
Precision.
spot, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well-
it doesn't matter. Every single wizard has a different way. So Harry is very much like responsibility, responsibility, responsibility.
Harry,
That's where my magic has to come from, or else it's just gonna be.
knowing, like,
loose
from
cannon.
later, this just occurred to me. He's a meme wizard. Because his spells are linked to words and ideas. Like, we find this out later when he's training Molly. The biggest spell, like the light, like to light a small flame. Like, he thinks of,
Oh, Flickenbickus, yeah.
Flickenbickus, right? Like, so his whole thing is a construct, and if you think about that, that's all a meme is. A meme is an idea that conjures something in you.
I'm gonna say it's a reach, but I get where you're going.
Like,
I mean, I would say it's a meme more that the whole reason that spell purposely came to troll Dumorn.
yeah, but it's just one of those things of like, I like, this is again going back to what I brought up every episode is I like the world of magic he's got because it's not like hard and fast, but it has enough rules that it makes sense. And to that point, like every wizard casts spells differently, but they all end up with the same results to varying degrees of control.
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
Well, essentially, yeah. Like, I mean, you want to light something on fire. There's a lot of ways to do it, right?
yep.
And if the thing's still gonna burn.
And it makes sense for a wizard who's got a lot of precision and a lot of control would think of the energy that goes into magic as a beam of light going through a prism, and they can just pull out the one that they need.
Well, again, it's also more like what they're concerned about, you know? Harry really doesn't care about his image. He cares about getting the job done.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas other wizards are more like, no, we cannot take out an entire city block. And Harry's like, yeah, we can, actually. Watch me throw a werewolf through 37 buildings.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a little bit of just, again, like the way that they approach things is totally based person to person to person, right? Wizard to wizard to wizard.
Yeah.
He's a little bit like the Hulk.
Yeah, right?
He is.
If you watch Endgame, and they go back in time, and you've got, like, the Bruce Banner Hulk hybrid looking at the Hulk, and he's just like, and they're like, well, you're gonna have to smash stuff so that people think you're the real Hulk. And he's like, and Bruce Banner's just very sarcastically like, rawr.
Yeah.
Throw this car. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's totally just like, yeah, way to sell it.
Favorite part is Cap running into Cap, and he's like, oh, and realizing how cringy he was.
That is America's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, like, his earlier self even starts saying his tagline. He goes, I know. Like, come on, let's get this over
That's
with.
personal growth, though.
Yeah.
Which is, essentially what we'll see from Harry, too, eventually, looking back on things. But yeah, right now he's just very much like, smash, smash, smash.
Yep.
Let the city or Marcone pick up the bill. It's fine.
Yeah.
He's very lucky how much he doesn't get sued, honestly.
Well,
I really like
Well, sure, death is like whatever.
like the end of this chapter here. He throws himself on the wolf's back and then jams a wrench into his jaws.
Way to bring it back.
but yeah, like to get back on track.
Hey!
Yeah, to get back on track, like he makes up that decision of like he can't leave them here to kill. He knows they won't survive, so
Yeah.
he goes in, and he doesn't like. I like the fact that he doesn't hint to what he's about to do. He just goes in, and it's kind of written as if he's just going to go in and try and attack the wolf, which is like, what the fuck?
I mean, it's hard to say for me now because I've read the book 2 or 3 times, so it's hard to say if I remembered this at the moment. But he's given all the clues as well. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I see the belts. Oh, knowledge is power. I'm going to throw myself at a wolf and jam a wrench into his jaws.
But that's the way Jim Butcher writes, though, is he gives you all the clues.
Mostly.
Yeah. A lot of the time, he'll give you the clues to the small thing that's going
Yeah,
on.
I find like he always gives you A, B, and D, but he always keeps like C to himself, right? So
Yeah.
then we can't totally predict it ourselves.
Which is
like,
good, because that would make the books very boring for us.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree. Like, I like how Jim Butcher
Yeah.
lays it out. It is very much like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I see where we're going with this. I'm totally with you. This is so cool and interesting.
And then what the fuck?
Harry's like, this is that conversation I had that I didn't tell you about. And you're like, that was the final piece or something.
Yeah.
Because, like, it always, like, Harry's like, I got on the phone. And then the next chapter starts, like, after the phone call ends. And you're like, fuck, what were you talking about,
Yeah.
So Jim Butcher, like, you're very much, like, with him.
Yeah.
But there's always that one little thing that Harry's like, save this for my end of the story. I'm so smart.
And he
speech.
does it early enough that you forget about it by the
Yeah,
time
it
it
is.
becomes
It's always
relevant.
something, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he attacks the wolf, stops it from butting his head off by jamming the wrench in its jaw.
Tara's just like,
Oh yeah,
that.
the alphas start.
chapter.
Yeah. Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
So this concludes our episode 5.11, Ballroom Blitz.
It's
A ballroom blitz. Thank you for guest hosting
Yeah,
again.
anytime.
Or
I'm
guest
happy
speaking.
to come.
You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure at it by your own risk.